Hi, I'm Agnes Francis Adolphine, and this is my dissertation defense presentation with Baylor University. My advisor is Dr. Marquita Foster. In the next 15 minutes, I will take you through the problem statement, literature review, the purpose statement, look at the research questions, theoretical framework, and methodology guiding the study. I will then delve into the findings and implications and talk about the distribution plan before previewing my references. So what is the problem? Antigua and Barbuda has been a sovereign nation since gaining political independence from British rule in 1981. The Twin Island faces a delicate balance between cultural preservation and economic interdependence. Barbuda inherited 62 square foot of communal land from the Codringtons post-emancipation, unlike Antigua that has freehold land. Barbuda, however, faces a complex web of disruptions to its way of life after Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Irma was a Category 5 hurricane that pummeled the island with 185 miles per hour wind speed, which left about 90% of the infrastructure damaged. Sadly, one life was lost. Subsequently, the population was evacuated, the first in 300 years, and during the displacement of the population, Barbudans were not consulted but faced exponential ecological and cultural threats from extractive development, including the destruction of 5 springs, over 300 acres of land destroyed to build a private airport. Mass land grabs and political schemes by builders and the government of Antigua and Barbuda administration under the guise of post-Hurricane Irma reconstruction benevolence ensued. The struggle for Barbuda's communal land rights reached a critical juncture given the 2023 Privy Council case ruling on standing and the 2018 Barbuda Land Act repeal by the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party-led government. The accelerated extractive developments by external builders like Discovery Land Company, DLC, Peace, Love and Happiness, PLH, reached a contentious stage, leading to talks of Barbudans' desire for secession from the larger island of Antigua. This study is about the Barbudan people. The purpose is to amplify their voices and to seek their perspectives on their cultural identity and autonomy impacted by the passage of Hurricane Irma. The literature unfolds in 4 stages. First, historical overview of displacement. The legacy of colonialism and population displacement serves as a crucial lens for this study. According to Hertz in 2018 and Kiana 2007, coloniality and modernity inherently connected underpin attempts to reconstruct communities from a white, Eurocentric, and capitalist perspective. This, according to the scholars, perpetuates a repackaged form of colonial dominance. Further, Adam 2022 and Turner 2016 looks at this recurrence and indicate that it underscores a consistent pattern where dominant powers assert control over weaker communities, driven by motives ranging from economic interests to political hegemony and cultural assimilation. Moving to the second stage, agent-target dynamics. Cultural imperialism perpetuates exploitation, marginalization, and powerlessness, according to Estes et al., Minami 2017, and authors rooted in Caribbean scholarly work like Brathwaite 1984 and Rodney and Davis 2018. These scholars unanimously regard cultural imperialism as a systemic tool institutionalized through soft and hard power tactics upon target populations. The third stage of my literary review is political ethics. Secession discussions encompass political, economic, cultural, and legal considerations, emphasizing discourse and cultural relevance and preservation, especially post-Hurricane Irma. Corbett 2020, Lightfoot 2021, and Lewinthal and Clark are instrumental in uncovering this area. Lastly, future implication Baptiste and Devonish emerges through their study on post-Hurricane Irma conflicts surrounding Barbuda's communal land tenure within the colonial legacies of land rights. The conflicts highlight complications in planning and mitigating future disasters. There are many challenges that Devonish, Lowenthal and Clark, Malfa 2019, and Renwo et al. Uncover. Specifically, they point to the surge in human activity, reduction in vegetation, and extensive overbuilding that imperil the natural ecosystem, signaling a notable shift in land use and posing a persistent threat to the intricate connection between Indigenous Barbudans, their land, food sovereignty, and livelihoods. Klein and Brown 2018 and Sue 2019 also supports this position. To guide this research, I posed two questions that align with the theoretical framework. The first question, how do Indigenous and transnational Barbudans perceive their cultural identity, aligns with CIT's second positioning of being and becoming. The second research question, what are Indigenous and transnational Barbudans' perspective on the Barbudan desire for autonomy, aligns with CIT multidimensionality construct. I applied cultural identity theory to this study. CIT, developed by Stuart Hall, the father of multiculturalism, is rooted in Caribbean intellectual thought and provides a detailed framework for understanding the fluid nature of participants' cultural identity. The study focuses on two dimensions of Hall's cultural identity theory framework. Second positioning, which looks at being, which is fixed, and becoming, which is fluid and under construction. It also looks at multidimensionality, the second dimension, and this dimension looks at the intersection between cultural identity and autonomy, focused on historical, political, cultural, and social constructs. Multidimensionality also focuses on resistance and self-determination amidst external influences. I employed a qualitative case study with embedded units, using two cases, Indigenous and transnational Barbudans. The study's methodology is focused on a constructivist worldview. The site for the study is Barbuda, a 62 square mile coral island located 25 miles north of Antigua. Beyond the physical landscape, the site also includes 4 major diasporas where Barbudans typically relocate, including the United States, Canada, the UK, and the Caribbean. Participants were selected using purposive sampling. I started with 15 and narrowed it down to 8 based on a criteria of age, work context, gender, and noted that this study had an equal number of male and female participants. My data collection employed questionnaires and semi-structured interviews. I used Creswell and Potts data analysis spiral model 6 steps to analyze the data, and I also scrutinized the embedded units of analysis by looking for patterns in the data to determine linkages to CIT and my literature review. Regarding the findings, initial codes appeared that explained deep pride and love for the Barbudanness expressed by both Indigenous and transnational Barbudans. They express a love for the way of life and the close-knit community expressed through hunting, fishing, camping, and spending time at the wharf. There was an inherent sense of a close-knit community and self-determination that was disrupted by the forced evacuation and displacement of the population. As it relates to autonomy, there was resistance and resilience against extractive building, exploitation, rebuilding practices, and the legal changes to the Barbuda Land Act. Indigenous and transnational participants mainly aligned on how they felt related to the impact of Hurricane Irma and had connected responses to their desire to preserve their cultural identity and autonomy. Perspectives on consultation, resilience, resistance, and representation proliferated from the responses of both embedded cases. Overall, four themes emerged as a result of the analysis of findings. Two related to second positioning and two related to multidimensionality. Overall, participants believe that their cultural identity is anchored in communal land and was disrupted after the hurricane. Their desire for autonomy is tied to cultural land preservation, and it remained largely unchanged after the Hurricane Irma. Participants also believe that external forces exploited the people of Barbuda and ignited resistance to external influences and political control. And lastly, participants believe that there's a strong link between cultural identity and autonomy, and it necessitates intergenerational education, policy changes, and enhanced governance in order to preserve it. There are also connections of the findings to the literature. Overall, the phenomenon of coloniality has enduring implications for the sovereignty and cultural identity of the population, as evidenced in the narratives of Indigenous Barbudans, especially after the forced evacuation after Irma. Tensions surrounding political unification and autonomy dating back to the 1990s align with participants' resistance against neo-colonial tactics. And then the struggle against forced evacuations and legislative changes, that reflects the broader intersection of trauma, resilience, and cultural preservations highlighted in the literature by Klein and Brown 2018 and Lightfoot 2021. There are 5 decision-making groups where findings and implications will be especially helpful. Findings emphasize the necessity for culturally sensitive post-disaster policies, including intergenerational education, collaborative consultation sessions to improve political, social, and cultural engagement, a cultural preservation task force that focuses on impact assessment and disaster recovery frameworks, as well as policy guardrails. There is a need to support trauma-informed interventions that acknowledge the profound impact of Hurricane Irma, and to conduct studies to assess the effectiveness of different autonomy models in post-disaster recovery. Lastly, investors and visitors are encouraged to implement sustainable development strategies that protect the land's natural ecosystem and engage in programs that provide insight into Barbuda's cultural and historical context. This study faced 2 limitations, and I applied 2 controls. I was delayed in my data collection, and as a result, original members who had agreed to participate in the study were no longer available. I partnered with Barbudans who were entrenched in the community to mitigate and navigate this challenge. Also, as a result of my delay in data collection, I only had 4 respondents to my questionnaire. However, their data was rich and contextual and allowed for the triangulation of data. From my findings, 5 groups will benefit greatly from the implications and recommendations of this study. These are the groups and the ways in which I plan to distribute the findings. Here is a snapshot of my references used for this study. And I continue with additional references. This study focused on a real-time problem that continues to unfold almost 7 years later. If you would like to learn more, please connect with Global Legal Action Network or connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks to my participants for their courage in amplifying their voices, and thank you for listening.